Greater Good Radio. Connect, learn, heal, and grow.
I worked at the city attorney's office in San Diego for a couple of years while I was in college. And, this is an important feature that part of defines me a little bit. Was I sat particularly in one particular case, and I worked for the city attorney's office it was an internship program that they had with the school, where I worked with the investigative arm for the city attorney. And the mayor at the time was a woman named Susan Golding. And San Diego's has what's called a city manager with a weak mayor system. The city manager has a lot of the operational. It's a little bit different than Honolulu. Anyway, the city of San Diego only had 2 or 3 attorneys on staff at that time.
So the manager's the powerful one and the mayor's not really.
Correct. The manager's appointed by the mayor, I think. I'm sure I'm butchering the system a little bit. But the point I was getting to is I was there at an interesting time because Susan Golding, the city was a target of a lot of slip and fall litigation. And the city decided to hire more attorneys and as a deterrent force in part for a lot of this litigation, but also to just manage it. And so it was an interesting time to be there. I sat through the case almost from beginning to end. A man had died not ostensibly, in the back of a police car, suffocated, placed face down while he was core-cuffed. And his family sued the city of San Diego and the police department. And so I sat through the whole case.
The police in the back were holding him down or something?
No, he was undergoing what they called cocaine psychosis. And they had core cuffed him, put him back, and
what is that? Core cuffed? What is that?
It's interestingly similar to hogtied. Is what they changed the name to sound better.
Oh man!
And so this particular case was actually brought up as the George Floyd case was being litigated because in fact, one of the expert witnesses, I believe, was the same one about whether it was possible. And the coroner at this case, and we're getting way off on a tangent here. The coroner in this case had left it ambiguous whether or not it was possible to suffocate while being hogtied in the back of a police car, which is exactly what happened to this guy. But he was also undergoing cocaine psychosis, and he was naked, or not, I don't know if he was naked, but he was in the middle of 3rd Street Promenade by Horton Plaza in San Diego at like 2 a.m. And the police, and he was, obviously had some substance abuse problems, and the police tied him up and put him in the back of the car, and that's how he died. This is 1994, maybe 93. And
wait, that's just before the Rodney King?
No, right around. It was after Rodney King.
Okay.
Yeah. So as you imagine, there's a lot of sensitivities around it, and it had a lot of attention on it. I sat through the whole thing and provided support as an intern. Early days of LexisNexis, which I don't even know if that's even around anymore with the internet.
I think so.
Is it? Yeah. Where, the city had a dial-up modem, and I got to play around in LexisNexis and do stuff. And so sitting through that, and in the closing arguments of the case, they talked about how much they were asking for the city. And the attorneys kept lowering the amount on this guy's life. And I saw that and I thought, I don't know if this is for me.
You mean the attorneys that were asking for the amount?
It was sort of the closing arguments. And, it's been a while, but it was presenting, hey, we're not asking for the city for much. And by the way, we discounted it already. And it was strange to be in that it was
like
part of it. Yeah, it was part of it, but it was almost to show how reasonable their ask was to the jury. And
for somebody's life.
Yeah. Or maybe it was in close things. I don't remember if the jury was in the room or not. There was settlement, all sorts of things, right? And just that whole exchange, I just couldn't wrap my mind around at the time. And not really fully understanding, like, hey, you don't have to be if you're going to go to law school, you don't have to be a criminal lawyer. I mean, of course I knew that.
It just didn't feel right.
I just had a hard time with it. And so when my dad said, hey, why don't you take a year off and come back to Hawaii? And I always wanted to come back, growing up here, I jumped at it. And so I didn't have this romantic story. And I know we talked about this 20 years ago. I didn't have this romantic story of growing up in the family business, playing under cutting tables, which I think is probably a good thing. A lot of people grow up in the family business, and that's wonderful. I didn't. Mm-hmm. And it maybe gave me some different perspective.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.